Hey, what do you think about Brady and his teammates going to work out at this high school?
I think if it's legal as far as the rules of society, why not? I mean, Tom Brady's going to have to try to get some sort of edge. And look, we've seen him in life push the boundaries with the inflation or deflation of football, this, that, and the other. But he knows he's kind of behind the eight ball here, just because he is who he is. He's going to a new team. He has not worked out with anyone else except Rob Gronkowski. That's going to be on his team, and he knows that he's actually an underdog for the first time in, I don't know, almost 2 decades, it seems like. So anything they could do to get ahead of the game, I'm sure Tom Brady is going to stretch the limit of societal law and try to make things happen and try to get ahead of the game.
The only thing that surprises me is that Drew Brees and the Saints haven't done this, considering they typically do. The lockout year, there was no more organized team than the Saints. Have you heard or do you anticipate the Saints doing something like this, players doing something like this?
I haven't heard of anything being organized as of right now, but I would be shocked if this does not happen, because usually, say in off seasons, and Drew Brees spends his off seasons in San Diego, and that's not a knock on New Orleans. If you ever been to San Diego, I'd spend my off season in San Diego too. But you would think that they would have workouts, and even Michael Thomas yesterday on a conference call with local media here, saying that they haven't done any of this workout stuff, but I'd be shocked if they did not do any of that stuff. And yet, here's the thing. Drew Brees, the only new weapon I really see on the page is Emmanuel Sanders. And Emmanuel Sanders is bona fide veteran. He can mold himself to great quarterbacks. He's done it with Ben Roethlisberger. He's done it with Peyton Manning. So it's not like Emmanuel Sanders hasn't been around the block with great quarterbacks. Look, just to get in shape, yes, because the Saints aren't going to be doing these off-season things within the team framework, because we've already heard Sean Payton say, look, come back as healthy and ready to go as you can for training camp, and we'll go there. But I do feel like that at some point the Saints, it might not be the whole team, but I'm sure Drew Brees will throw a pass to Michael Thomas before training camp starts. I'm pretty convinced of that.
Okay, so you mentioned Emmanuel Sanders and talking to Michael Thomas yesterday. So your impressions on Thomas and what he had to say about Sanders coming into the offense?
I think Michael Thomas understands what's coming, in that Emmanuel Sanders has been able to do it in multiple places. He could jump in, learn a playbook, and be ready to go. And I think that Michael Thomas knows he's the man, and I think we all know that. But I also feel like that he knows Emmanuel Sanders can certainly help team-wise. And even though Michael Thomas has all these numbers, he is legit when he talks. It's team, team, team. He knows ultimate respect comes with championships and wins. And so that's what Michael Thomas wants. I mean, he's reached almost the peak of being a wide receiver right now. You're not going to win an MVP, more than likely, but he's won the Offensive Player of the Year award. He has all these accolades. He's on his way without a championship to a Hall of Fame career. But the ultimate thing is he wants to be a champion, and knowing Emmanuel Sanders has been there and done that and is ready to go. And he probably remembers what he saw against San Francisco, where Emmanuel Sanders was shredding the Saints secondary. I think he's fired up to have someone who could be more diverse than, say, a Ted Ginn. Ted Ginn was, by the end especially, was a one-trick pony, and he couldn't even do that trick very well. So I feel like he feels that Emmanuel Sanders will certainly be someone to come in, take some heat off of him, and be productive and score touchdowns. And it's like I've told you this before on the show. I feel like Emmanuel Sanders was the perfect match for the Saints, the exact wide receiver they needed that was in free agency.
So there's one thing you said, though, that did interest me. You said that Emmanuel Sanders, and I'm paraphrasing what you said, but was essentially the only weapon they added this offseason. Are you not convinced that Ty Montgomery plays some type of significant role in this offense?
To me, I think he needs to make the team. I still, if you're signed this late, I know that, look, he's done some good things and he's been versatile. And here's the thing: would he be an upgrade to, say, Dwayne Washington is the number 3 running back per se. Sure, I do think that, but he's still just got to make the team, and I would see him as the perfect, say, backup to Alvin Kamara. But Matt, let's remember, you hear Tom Montgomery, and boy, you've seen him do some good things. If he was that highly coveted, and he was playing that well, he'd be on a team. He would have been signed already. So the fact you get him this late, I do feel like this is a guy in my eyes that still needs to make the team.
I would argue that he's the best option you have as a third running back, and his versatility in the fact that he's primarily a wide receiver on a roster where you really only have 2 wide receivers makes him really valuable. Like Larry, I mean, who are the 5 or 6, if you include Deontay Harris, receivers you take ahead of Ty Montgomery?
I'm not saying that I don't disagree with you, but I still need to see him make the team. I mean, he's bounced from roster to roster. We've seen him at his best. He's certainly on a team. He's certainly valuable, but he's bouncing around. I mean, there's a reason for that. It's not by accident. And so, like I said, if he was that valuable, he would have already been on a team. So I still think, could he be those things? Sure. But I need to see it within the system to say, okay, maybe he can be that. If you get signed this late in the game, it is make the roster if you're a veteran. You need to just make the roster, and then we'll see what happens.
All right. Larry Holder's our guest, theathletic.com/New Orleans. Do you think they're done in free agency?
I'd like to say no, but I just feel like there might not be some big splash move that maybe people think when you cut Larry Warford loose and you get a little bit of money. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just feel like that their roster is very good. They don't need to do that if they don't have to, you know what I'm saying? So I do feel like, though, that Ty Montgomery, I would have said running back. They would have looked there. And then they get Montgomery, who can kind of play wide receiver and running back. And so I feel like that could be a sneaky good pickup. Again, I'm just going to put disclaimer if he makes the team. I assume he will, but I'm just saying he still needs to do that. But as far as some other positions, it wouldn't stun me if, say, a linebacker came in and maybe they took a sniff at an edge guy because your edge guys right now are, of course, Cam Jordan, but Marcus Davenport, Trey Hendrickson's in the final year of his deal, and then Carl Granderson, who's kind of an unproven commodity, but they think he's got some upside. So you'd probably like to add a veteran there. So I think that's a position they could look at.
What about corner? What if they were to bring back Eli Apple if he remains unsigned?
I think that Eli Apple ship has sailed. I think it would be a mistake because I think he would revert back to being kind of the turdish Eli Apple he was in New York. He wouldn't be a starter, and I just don't think it would work. Okay. And there's a reason why they let him walk. There's a reason why they went and got Janoris Jenkins and not caring about Eli Apple's feelings late in the season. So I wouldn't say him, but corner would be a spot they could look at. They've got a ton of corners around, but you only feel really good about, say, Lattimore and Janoris Jenkins right now.
He is Larry Holder, theathletic.com/New Orleans. I don't know this story, but I saw it pinned on your Twitter account. What's the deal with the ambush ball?
Yeah, it's funny. We're doing right now a memorabilia blitz on the Athletic where we're doing baseball cards and obscure items that people may have acquired. And I tracked down the person who actually has the football that Thomas Morstead kicked that Chris Reese recovered. I tracked him down. He's a local lawyer here in town. But the journey is pretty funny just because of the side story where Thomas Morstead and Sean Payton have jousted for years of where the actual football is, because Sean Payton claimed to Thomas Morstead that he had the football. And Morstead's like, no, I know the actual owner. So they kept going back and forth and back and forth. And Morstead said, look, you need to interview Sean and ask him about it. And as soon as I did, Sean said, nope, I don't think I have it. Morstead loved it. Morstead thought he was going to get cut for me trying to cause some controversy. Of course, Sean fired back to me really quickly and said, I think he's safe. But no, really interesting story of how the ambush football ended up with Tristan Manthey, a local attorney in town, a big-time memorabilia buff. You wouldn't think that thing would fly out of a Hall of Fame somewhere, but it resides in Tristan Manthey's house, and it's the one piece of memorabilia he told me that he hides whenever he goes out of town for a long time. Anything else can be taken, jewelry, God knows what, but do not steal that football. He's not having that.
And now a lot of people know that it's at his home. All right.
I never told you where he lived. I hope he changed his address, or hid it on like the white pages. I mean, does that even still exist? The white pages? I don't know.
You can pretty much Google anything. Hey,
right.
before you go, what would you rename the Superdome?
I would not rename it anything. I'd call it the Superdome. I'd bite it and not say, I don't need the money, and just let it be.
Okay, in your fantasy land, that can happen. In this real world where we live, where the Saints and the state are going to do a 9-figure deal for the naming rights, what would you like it to be?
Gosh, I have not really thought that long and hard about it. I will say, here's my thing. I bet you they do something like the Dixie Superdome, and I think that would be totally lame. I think that would be they'd be paying themselves, which would be lame. I feel like that might be something that they do. But oh man, I don't know. What are some of the suggestions that you have? Maybe it'll spur an idea in my head.
Well,
what do you got?
I think about, okay, what are billion-dollar annual revenue companies that would actually qualify, right? I mean, you that seems like that's a pretty good baseline. If you're not a company generating at least $1 billion in annual revenue, you're probably not going to be in the mix there.
Right.
I feel like there's a couple of healthcare systems in Louisiana that could qualify. CenturyLink is one that's up in Monroe, correct? I'd look at Raising Cane's, which I looked up today, does about $1.5 billion annually. Popeyes does more than $3 billion annually. A Sazerac, which of course is a New Orleans company, and I'm a super big whiskey guy, so I would love that. Sazerac does about $1 billion in annual revenue.
Sazerac would be wonderful. I could drink Sazerac till the cows come home. You and me could go to town on those suckers.
We're going to do that anyway.
Yeah, we have to.
All right. He's Larry Holder. Let's just make it official. We're going to call it the Sazerac Superdome.
Look, it actually, it's got some alliteration to it.
I love it.
I think sold. I'm in.
Sazerac Superdome.
I just needed to hear some of your ideas because I really haven't pondered it. Because actually, whenever I write columns, a lot of times I don't even put Mercedes-Benz next to the Superdome, and I might even take the Super off, and I'll just call it the Dome.
The Dome.
Just because, I take some liberties as a columnist. I'll do what I want as far as, like, quoting Cartman. I'll do what I want, and I'll just call it the Dome.
It's so stupid. Larry Holder. He's on Twitter at Larry Holder. theathletic.com/New Orleans. Go read his stuff. Maybe he'll do Cartman impressions. We'll see you. Thanks for the time.
I'll do what I want. Respect my authority.
Respect my authority. I was coming with it, dude. I was coming with respect my authority. All right, man. I'll see you later.
All right, brother.
All right. That is Larry Holder. Respect my authority.